Welcome to the Sales Report, where we learn how alumni from one of the world's top sales programs have found success in their career and in their life. Michigan State University graduates will discuss their professional journeys, the skills, knowledge, and habits required to be top performers. The Michigan State Sales Leadership minor leverages the strength of two nationally ranked colleges, the Broad College of Business and the College of Communication Arts and Sciences. I am your host, Sydney DeHorn, and today we have Kody Klenow with us. Kody, thanks so much for being here. And Kody, just so you know, the goal of this podcast is to highlight the success of our MSU Sales Leadership minor alumni. And with that being said, a little bit of research that I've done on you and would like to highlight before we get going with all the questions. So you graduated from Michigan State in 2015. You studied advertising management and sales leadership. And your current job title is Vice President of Sales for Lee Enterprises. So one of the things that I noticed first when I was doing my research on you is that you have only been out of school for 7-ish years. Is that correct?
Yeah, it seems much longer than that, but yeah, around 7 years.
One of the largest things I was surprised about is that you are already in a vice president of sales position. I find that amazing and very inspiring, especially for someone who's interested in sales like myself. And I know plenty of other people that are listening to this podcast. Can you walk us through your journey and how you have gotten to such a high title so quickly after graduating from MSU?
First off, I would say I wouldn't be in this role if it wasn't for the program that I graduated from. I think that being in the sales leadership minor, it wasn't even a minor back then, it was a specialization. But that gave me a leg up coming into the workforce. So when you really picture it as being 7 years outside of school, well, for 3 or 4 years within that program, I was learning all the things that you would learn for 3 or 4 years out of school. So I felt like I had a leg up on a lot of the individuals that were coming into sales at the same time that I was. So I moved to Chicago. I was working in logistics for Kody Logistics, who was corporate sponsor of the program. Got a lot of great sales experience there. But my degree was in advertising management. So I knew I kind of wanted to get into that space. And fortunately, during the program, Gannett was a former sponsor of the program when I graduated. And after about a year of being out of school, they had a few positions come available. So they reached out to me. A few of my internal network individuals, a couple of the corporate sponsor folks who are actually very involved with the program knew me and said, "Hey, Kody, we loved you when you were in school, but we didn't have any open positions. What are you doing nowadays?" One thing led to another, and I got into the advertising space. I say it a lot, but I'm kind of one of those weirdos that gets to use the degree they got every day, which is fascinating. A major in advertising management and a minor in sales leadership, and now I lead salespeople who sell advertising. It worked out. So went back to Gannett, worked my way up, went from everything from a direct seller to a sales manager, worked with a few different sales directors. And what I will say is the program's helped a lot, and I've had a lot of great people around me too. So really latched onto a lot of really good mentors. And as they expanded their careers, I kind of grabbed onto their coattails and wanted to learn what their last role was like and how I could fill their shoes. So one of my mentors moved to McClatchy. She became a vice president of sales. Okay. And then a year later, she recruited me to become a director of sales. Okay. And then after that, I got recruited and came over to Lee Enterprises and was able to work my way into a VP position, which is super exciting.
Well, again, congratulations. And that is very exciting.
Thank you.
I know you mentioned that people had reached out to you from Gannett and, other companies and grabbing onto people's coattails. Other than obviously doing a great job at the role you were in, because of course that's why people want you. How did you stand out from a networking perspective? Because I think it's not only doing a good job at, the role that you're in, but I also think it's like connecting with the people on a different level, which is why they want to keep you. So what was it that you did, again, other than doing a great job at your everyday role, to stand out to these people, for them to be reaching out to you and saying, "Hey, Kody, we want you"?
Really good point. You got to accomplish the task that's in front of you. You can't look too far ahead. You've got to be able to prove yourself in the role that you're in. But also, I think I've done a pretty good job of internally networking. I tend to be naturally curious. So, for example, even if another role doesn't necessarily affect what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, I like to get involved with that peer group and
Okay.
just understand how their day-to-day goes about. Because I think the more you know about your organizational's in workings, the better you are at your role. And then also it leverages itself to be more well known in the company, that you've taken the time to understand maybe a role that doesn't directly impact you. I've done a pretty good job of internally networking to get my name out in the company, not only just with my bosses, but with their peers, on various different levels of the organization. So I would say internally networking is just as important as networking to clients, especially as a student at Michigan State and in a program that you're in the sales leadership minor. You have a secret weapon, you have a superpower. You are a student at a great university. And I would use that, I would leverage it with LinkedIn, reach out to people who are also alumni like me. This is a plug to anybody listening. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. More than happy to connect with fellow Spartans and help you with your path. But I would reach out to folks, do job shadowing, try to figure out things you don't like. I would say you save yourself a lot of time by job shadowing, by having conversations, and you're like, you know what? Working with that Kody guy would not be fun. At least I only spent an hour with them today instead of, a whole year of my career with them. So find those things that you don't like. So it allows you to really go towards a career that you do like. And then I would say when you're out networking at these events, whether it's on campus or just getting involved in different things, realize that we're all just people. I feel like of course want to be professional and you want to be buttoned up and you want to have good hygiene and all these different things, but you can go up and talk to our corporate sponsors just like you would talk to anybody else. They want to help you. People want to help each other. And I think that's a really important thing to realize when you're at these types of events or these career fairs. Just go have a conversation and see where it leads. Be naturally curious, ask really good questions, and have a good conversation.
That's such good advice. And I love what you said about jobs that you don't like. It's just as important in your learning experience as the jobs that you do like. I have found that to be incredibly true. I didn't know what it meant before I started my career, but I definitely know what that means now. I know you've had several different sales experiences. Can you elaborate a little bit on what your not as favorite experiences have been and why your current experiences or some of the other experiences that you went through were your favorite?
We're on the same page there. Is finding things out that you don't like is so important, and it saves you a lot of time in the long run. For me, I like what's called outside sales. I like presenting in front of large groups. I love meeting with people in person or in this kind of, Zoom atmosphere. I don't like the monotony of inside sales where it's the same conversation over and over again. Putting my junior and college cap back on, I'm like, yeah, you like outside sales, but then I went more into an inside sales path. Those two didn't cross, but I wish I would have spent more time job shadowing and figuring that out. But for me, yeah, I'm a golden retriever. I'll go up and talk to anybody, say hello, how you doing, wag my tail, and I like being around people. And just being over the phone or being more that inside sales role, kind of stationed to a desk wasn't a fit for me.
That's definitely good to know. I think that a lot of people listening to this and a lot of people that go into the sales minor have that same mentality that they don't want to sit behind a desk all day. And that's why they want to go into sales. It's really interesting to hear a lot of people end up liking inside sales more than outside sales. So I also think that that's interesting. But with that, what was your favorite experience being in the sales minor? Not only your favorite, but most beneficial.
My favorite experience was participating in both of the sales competitions. A lot of folks probably listening to this are either terrified to have to participate in that someday,
Yeah.
or maybe have participated and they get what I'm about to say, but you have so much anxiety and nerves leading up to that point. But I think it's a microcosm of life or any sales experience is once you do it, you feel much better after having done it. I remember the night before my first sales competition, in a brief story here, I actually broke my nose the night before our first sales competition playing basketball. And I had two black eyes going into the sales competition. So super nervous, but also a great rapport builder, great icebreaker for the sales competition. And I was so nervous about just how I was going to be perceived, things like that,
Sure.
if I was going to do well. But then after the competition, I felt so good. I felt more prepared. In my opinion, the closest to real life sales that you can get from a schooling setting. And that was my favorite memory for sure.
I honestly love the sales competitions, and I full on experience the anxiety you're talking about. So I hear you. I love that. I love hearing that people love it after they're finished with it. So thanks for sharing that story. What would you say the biggest difference for you has been between, let's just say, competing in the sales competition or just being a part of the sales minor at MSU versus your everyday life in your career now?
I would say no matter how hard you prep or you try to put yourself into real world experiences or real world conversations,
Mhm.
there's inevitably always going to be a gray area or an area that you need to pivot in a sales call. It's never a perfect world scenario. What the sales program allows you to do is have a really good foundation built for you to be able to then pivot from. In my everyday experience, there's never a perfect sales call. You can never say, I know exactly what questions are going to be asked, or I know exactly how I'm going to overcome this objection. But I think having built that foundation of that, just getting more at bats, getting more repetition allows me to perform my everyday job
Sure.
effectively.
And for someone who, let's just say, hasn't competed in the sales competition yet, or even a sales internship that is practicing for the competition or practicing for an interview, can you give one or two tips on how you best pivot in a conversation? Like, I think I hear a lot of, you have to pivot conversations in with your clients every once in a while, which I do in my role too. But I don't think that there's a lot of hardcore answers as to how to do that sometimes. So if you can explain how it is that your brain works, or how it is that you like to pivot when you're speaking with your clients, just to help those that are listening understand better, that would be great.
Sure. And I think a lot of people, they get told, "Hey, you're very charismatic. You should go into sales," or "You're a good talker," or "You can BS," or whatever it is. There's
Mhm.
these stereotypes when it comes to sales. What I think, to be a good salesperson, and you might not understand this until you get in the environment, you have to be a great listener first. Do not listen to respond, listen to understand. And that's something I struggle with to this day. I love talking. I think I've got a lot of cool stuff to say. But I think if you can take your time when you're with a customer and listen to understand, as opposed to listen to have something to say, you not only earn a lot of respect, but you are able to pivot in a way that makes sense for the conversation. And it's okay to embrace silence or to re-ask a question in a way, hey, you know what? It seems like I'm not quite understanding this. Are you saying X, Y, and Z? And let that question mull over a little bit before you respond, and not just try to fill empty space. So I
Sure.
think if you can listen to understand, it will allow you to pivot effectively.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when you're listening to understand, this is kind of an interesting question in the sense that I'm not sure if people get asked this all the time. When you're listening to the client that you are scouting out, do you ever find that Lee Enterprises service or offering that you have doesn't necessarily fit the client well, and you just decide not to go with them?
Certainly. And I think, again, that is a sign of a seasoned salesperson and a sign of someone in sales who's going to be successful, because you then become a trusted figure. If you can say, and this happens with budget all the time, a client wants to buy a Tesla for the budget of a Chevy Malibu. That always happens,
Mhm.
and I think if you can articulate, I understand your budget's this, it's okay to say, you know what, it just doesn't look like it's a good fit right now. In the way that I've really approached that is, it's not a good fit right now, but here might be a path forward in the future. Or it's not a good fit right now, and here's why. And what I've found is sometimes there is more budget, or it truly is a good fit. And they don't trust you yet to share information.
Mhm.
Or some of those clients that you fire or you don't move forward with become your best clients in the future, because you're not just like every other salesperson that says, oh, let me discount my prices instantly to fit what you need, or I really need this sale. It doesn't matter if it's going to actually affect your business. I just need the sale. If you can learn to say no, or say, no, thank you, it's not a good fit for either of us, you're going to end up being more successful later down the line than you would for just that quick, immediate sale right now.
Absolutely. And I'm sure they recognize you're an authentic person, not just, again, like you said, trying to get that sale across.
And it's tough. In sales, we're competitive people. We want to see the needle move.
Right.
And that's just how a lot of salespeople are hardwired. But I always try to say, let's not step over dollars to pick up pennies.
Mhm.
Let's not go for a really quick win, and we can build a really good relationship here and have a win that's going to affect both of our organizations for years to come.
With that, the last question I'll ask you, for those students that are listening to this, that maybe are a junior or they're a senior about to start their career, or they're about to start an internship, or they're interviewing, what are the tips that you have, or number one tip that you have for a student looking back now at where you are now, and looking back, what's one piece of advice that you give those that are listening?
I'll give three quick hitters.
Okay.
The first would be network. Take advantage of your alumni network. Take advantage of individuals that have graduated from the sales program. Have those conversations, and because people want to help each other. That'll get you in a spot that is super effective. Get involved at the university level. Find clubs, find like-minded people that you can share ideas with, things like that. You're only going to look back and regret the stuff you didn't do, not that you just skip something out. So get involved in those clubs and things like that too. And my third piece would be, there's a lot to life. You're going to want to find your lifetime career on day one. You're going to have tough days. You're going to have anxiety with interviewing. You're going to have all these different things. What I would say is really try to compartmentalize your thoughts. It's going to be okay. Just keep one step in front of the other, whether it's interviewing, whether it's job shadowing, whether you're like, you know what, I'm never going to find that long-term career that I've been searching for. It's going to happen. One step in front of the other. Keep consistently kind of moving forward, and good things happen. Nothing ever good happens from stalling out or from being comfortable. Try to get into spots where you're uncomfortable, whether that be new relationships, new opportunities, things like that. So that's where I'll leave you with that one.
Thank you. Appreciate all of your responses, and all of the authentic pieces that you gave to those that are listening today. Really appreciate having you on today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, and go green.
Go White. All right, all. Thanks so much for listening today. Please be sure to follow Kody on LinkedIn and listen in on the remainder of the Sales Report podcast. You can find us on LinkedIn, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.